films from the filmmakers. So before we start, it's like roughly we have 5 minutes each person, so like 25 minutes each, so that we can run on our program effectively. Starting off with Atif, your film, Forgive Me. What made you make that film? Like inspiration behind, because like vampires, blood, love. How did you come up with the thingy?
Well, I'm the producer, so I'll have to speak on David's behalf here. I've been following David for like nearly a year, and all he ever posted was just horror films. He's an absolute horror buff. Like, he's crazy, he's so obsessed with horror. And eventually he puts a call out on Instagram saying, are there any producers out there that want to help me make a pitch trailer? That's what it actually was, not a short. So I contacted him and I said, yeah, I'm well down for a vampire flick. I mean, who isn't? Plus, we need to erase Twilight. Yeah. So he goes, yeah, okay. So we got down there. I said, look, what is it exactly? And he goes, basically, it's more about world building. He wants to build a world around vampires, his own one. I was like intrigued by that. I was like, okay, so there's some hints in there. There's a map of Bulgaria as well, if you notice that in the corridor. So I was like, that aspect of it really intrigued me. I was like, okay, this is different. He's not tackling like the story as much, but more so the world building. And he knew he had a massive task on him with building a story within like 2 minutes for a vampire film. So he goes, no, I'm focused on more of that aspect, but there is obviously a story there. And he wanted to just put a bit of a different turn on the whole vampire thing. As you can see, she's in the daylight there, so it's a bit different. But yeah, that's what.
Because that is a completely different perspective, which I thought, because I was looking at that as a short film, and I was kind of saying like, oh, do we humans will sacrifice others people to save the people we love? So I was having that kind of vibe with that. I mean, because we often want to help the people we love, that we care for, but we often forget like, oh, there are others we need to take care of as well, because this is being mean towards the people we love. So, I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, in a funny way, the script itself, the story itself was so. On the first read, the dad is actually like a sort of a villain almost. He's asking his son to come home, and he knows why, which is why he's holding the prayers and he's saying, forgive me. So he's asking his son to come home, but not in the way he had kind of like, it was a shock to him that the mother actually went and killed his son. It wasn't supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be like a more of a, feed her a little bit and you still survive kind of thing. So yeah, there was an aspect of like helping, but it turned really wrong, as you saw.
Yeah. That's the beauty of the films, like you often get to see other views and stuff like that. And as you mentioned, like David wants to build a whole world of empires. So how are you gonna plan that? I mean, fundings and stuff like that, because I know like it's gonna cost you a lot of money.
Oh yeah, of course.
So how are you looking to that? I mean, in terms of developing a feature on that?
Well, the first thing to do was to make a pitch trailer itself. First script was actually like almost less than a page. Then I asked him, look, no, we're gonna have to develop this a little bit more. You'll have to give a bit more than just a few shots. Turn into something properly, and also we can promote it as a short film as well. And so he's been writing the script, and I think he's pretty much finished with the script now. So we're not only going to be pitching this out to studios, but it's going to be the full script as a screenplay itself. So there's two avenues you can go through: either the traditional pitch with the film, or the screenplay. So we've got some options.
Well, I hope you get to see what you want to see with that. Can you please introduce yourself for the audience?
Yeah, gosh. Hi everyone, my name's Almer. I'm the director of Into the Blue Again, which is the film about the guy who thinks he's a goldfish.
Okay. Well, but again, I might get bored, but it's a thing we want to know about the inspiration of each film. So, because I could see some kind of existential crisis, the identity crisis in that. So, is that what you were inspired by while making the film?
So, I was approached by Dan, the writer, back in early 2024, and he had this idea for a film that was all about Therians, if anyone knows what that is. For those of you who don't, it's people who believe that they are born they're supposed to be animals. They're born as wolves or dogs or cats or all manner of different creatures. And that's what the film initially was. It was about a guy who thinks he's a goldfish, but and then connects with this community and finds comfort in this community that's, despite them being othered in our society, in that society he's very much accepted. I was fascinated by it. I think I was confused by it. I was definitely intrigued by it. And so we kind of worked together and we developed it a bit more, and it actually transpired. The film was a lot more... So Dan wrote it when he was during lockdown, and it was very much about feeling isolation and feeling like a lack of identity, because his identity was very much connected. Well, he felt that it's an interesting exploration of identity that's very much connected to community, but what happens when that community doesn't exist in your immediate environment? What happens when it's taken online? And so it kind of transpired that that's where the inspiration came from. It was about an identity crisis in the terms of you're connecting with people that aren't conventional, but that's where you feel at home, and that was kind of the through line. So then it became obviously the film that you see today. So it's kind of gone through a lot of twists and turns, and we did a lot of research and made a lot of people very angry, because we kind of, when we were doing research, we wanted to understand what that community was like, and they said, well, no, we feel like a lot of representations of us are kind of twisted with like furries and things like that. It has certain undertones and whatnot. But I think for Dan, who wrote it, it was just an interesting idea about what identity is, what it could be, and when you feel like you've lost it. So yeah.
So, because as you mentioned, like it was written in the COVID times, when I was watching the film, I was thinking like it is some kind of identity crisis, where because the current society we live in, we live more in isolation. So everyone is living in a shell, but I mean these shells are there. Like you are in the people, but you're not in the people. You know what I mean? So I could see that, but I would be interested to know like how people reacted to your film. Is it like your first screening, or have you been to other screenings? So how did you receive the response of the audience?
Good question. I like to think, well, maybe I'm the boss person. Maybe I'm not the best. What did you guys think? You know, it's probably that way to ask it. But I think it's quite entertaining. I think it's got it's quite visually quite interesting, which helps. The music composed for it, which is amazing. So all of that lends to the experience. You know, it takes a village to make a film. So I think people recognise all those individual elements as making the film quite a good experience to watch. I think it's interesting hearing what people laugh at. I think because it's not a comedy, but it's not a comedy. There's moments when I'm definitely like, this is absurd. How do we get this made? These moments, and it's nice to hear other people agree with that and laugh with it and smile along with it. So I think the reaction's been quite good. I don't think it's what I expected. We didn't make it to know what to expect. We just sort of were like, right, we'll make it, we'll put it out there, see what resonates with people, and I think it's been received well.
But I mean, have you shown that film to the community outside the UK as well? Because I come from South Asia, and for the people I know, because I moved here like last year, so from my experience, if it was something which was as shown there, it would have been completely different, because the identity crisis, the existential crisis comes after once you have covered up with your basic needs. So if you have done that, if not, then I would highly recommend to go for such audiences as well, and to see how they perceive this idea, and what would be they saying about that.
Yeah, we had some interesting comments when we screened it a couple of times, because there's definitely feels like there's almost like a trans allegory running through it, which some people really resonated with. Some people recognise the main character as being neurodivergent, which again some people really resonated with, which aren't things that we consciously were aware of and how the audience received it, but it's nice to hear that the scope of it is beyond what we as filmmakers think. You know, when you make a film, you have this idea, but then when you give it to the audience, it's for them to interpret how they want, and it's nice to hear that there's different interpretations of everyone's work.
And what would be your next project about exploring identities, and maybe, I mean, what do you see right now in the world, what's happening? People are transitioning from different characters to different identities, so are you planning to make more films on that, or...?
Yeah, so a lot of the work that I do is in documentary. It's kind of where I cut my teeth and where I work in now. So I do a lot of documentaries about folk culture in the UK, which is something that really interests me. So I grew up in the east of England, in East Anglia, and there's a really strong tradition of pagan celebration, of old Celtic traditions, and I think the identity of the region is so rooted in these traditions that don't really have any sort of basis anymore. The tradition is the tradition, and people follow it because they've followed it for a long time. And so, for me as a filmmaker, I think that's interesting because identity is so tied to a place and so tied to a tradition that doesn't, not that it doesn't exist, but the tradition is in and of itself what makes up the identity. So those are some of the projects that I'm working
I
on.
think
And that's
you and Nick would go along for that because his film was kind of same aspect as well. But Jamie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely to see the film because it is the experience of everyone like who goes out every day for the work and then they are kind of trapped into one set of routine, which often, I mean, as an indie filmmakers, if I have to talk about myself, I feel so much isolated or so much neglected when I am doing my corporate job or some other stuff. And then, so what was the inspiration behind your film, and I mean, how long it did take to develop the idea and the film itself?
I actually really don't remember. I don't remember anything about doing it really. I'm sorry. I started doing it.
When did you do it?
I don't remember that either. I don't know. It was like, I think it was like a year ago.
You should be the cost of goldfish.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just a good reaction. I was doing it for myself because, like you say, it was unpleasant, and I've always felt that images explain things in a specific way that is very useful, and I thought it'd be. Well, I didn't think anything. Like I say, it was just I just started doing it without thinking about anything, and then like halfway through, I started watching bits back, and it was really helping me like to anchor myself in what was happening in my life. And I never expected to show it. It was really just sort of a film that I made so I could watch it back and kind of think, kind of like journaling. It was kind of like a film journal. Yeah. But I do
keep an inspiration for yourself to keep doing what you love. Not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Be involved with that.
Yeah.
And I would really, I mean, say like you should show that film to much wider audience as well because the images they play an important role in understanding one as well because sometimes people do feel like they are being isolated or they are the ones who are feeling that kind of feeling, but when they see such stuff they can correlate to the stuff and then it can help them cope with that. So I mean, have you got any other ideas you want to explore where you're not so sure of them?
Yeah, I wrote a couple of scripts, and they're both sort of about, in different situations, people being, choosing to be vulnerable with each other. Kind of like the disconnect between when you talk to someone for the first time, it's sort of surface level, and to some extent it is sort of, not a lie, but it is a pretense. And the moment where you and another person decide, in whatever relationship you have, if it's a friendship or a colleague or romantic, the moment where you decide to kind of like open yourself up a little bit to each other, and I seem to fall into doing that a lot. Like I'll think, oh, I'll do something like this, and then I always gravitate back to like the same ideas, which is really frustrating. I don't like it, but yeah.
I mean, you won't know until you do it, so just keep doing what you do. But Nick,
Hello,
what-
everybody.
if you can briefly introduce yourself, and then I will come back to your film.
Cool. So I'm Nick Dunleavy, writer-director of The Comb, the historical film right at the start, if you remember that one. Yeah, I love making historical films. I'm a film nerd and a history nerd, so I thought, put the two together and see what I come up with. And I made that.
Yeah. What part of history inspired you to do this film?
You know what, I'm obsessed with everything. Could be 50 years ago or 5,000, I love the texture of the past. I've got so many ideas, but all my ideas are kind of based on the weird stories, because there's loads of like World War II films or cowboy films. But I love like things like, Banshee of Inisherin, The Favourite. I'm always referencing them as I love the weird stories from the past, and they're the ones I'm looking for. And this one was kind of based off an Instagram post I saw, a bit weird. So it's someone mocking a medieval monk who was trying to justify why the Saxons massacred all these Vikings. And what he was saying was basically because the Saxons would wash once a year, they were quite dirty. The Vikings would wash once a week, they'd, comb their hair, get tattoos, they look really cool. And the monk was saying, so I'm going full history nerd now, sorry, keep with me. The monk said, because the Vikings were washing every week, it made out the Saxon would want to fornicate. So of course we had to kill them. I'm like, no, that's so weird. So it's kind of branched off this weird Instagram post and it's kind of gone into this. But I wanted to make a film last year. I was desperate. I was like, use what you've got. I've got one camera, one zoom lens, mate's an actor, cut myself as an extra, put it in one location in 5 minutes and see what you get. And an Instagram post and a camera brought that film together.
That's pretty cool. But do you think this is kind of being repeated in today's world as well? Because you are into history, and if we look into the history, there have been some sequences which, I mean, we feel like there shouldn't be that, but if we see it in today's world, if you look in the history, Vikings were coming here in England and trying to conquer the land, but now if we see what is happening around the world with this, I mean, projected World War III, what is happening in Gaza, what is happening in Dubai, what is happening in Lebanon, do you think it's kind of the same thing as well? I mean...
There's elements of that. So they always say with history, why are you writing this story now? And I kind of did it backwards, so the theme came as I was writing it. So obviously I wanted to make a film, loved history, that kind of framed it. But then as I was writing, I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of something I went through. And in 2024, I don't know if you remember, there was kind of riots in Salford. There was this horrible thing happened and the local idiot brigade jumped on it. And I was just like, these people that are writing, they think they're right. And they try and justify it, even though everyone else can see that they're wrong. And that's what I kind of brought in this character, is like, people frustrated, and they'll add 2 and 2, put it together and make 22 and think they're right. But actually, it's... So there's that kind of came through the story.
Yeah. And in terms of your future projects, what historical aspect you are looking into, like what you want to explore more into the films, or anything specific you want to teach people so that they can have a little sense of the history and what is happening right now?
I've got a couple of irons in the fire at the minute. The next one is kind of, well, there's 2 that I want to make something this summer. I'm not quite sure which, depends on funding, but there's one based off my surname. I was arrogant, Google my own surname, and it's Old Irish. It means chieftain or brown-haired man of the mountain. I was like, what? How do you go from chieftain to brown-haired man? I'm a bald-haired man now, so it didn't really work. But the history works out. Apparently people with my surname, might not be related, but with my surname there were chieftains in Northern Ireland 1,000 years ago. Then the English came and stole the crown, so I was like, oh, there's a story here. It kind of went from chieftains to bald-headed men. So I've kind of found a little gap. There's a king and the Englishman, and kind of it's their story really. So that's hopefully I can tell it this summer and bring it together.
You mentioned fundings, because I suppose like we all are kind of indie filmmakers or film enthusiasts. How do you see fundings? Like how long it does take to get the funding? I mean, do you think like it's a justified application time period you have to spend on that? And then in terms of getting actual the funds, I mean, meeting the timelines and stuff like that. Any recommendations, feedback?
I always say if you don't shoot, you don't score. There's loads of funds out there. If you don't try for them, you'll never get it. So just put your hat in the ring. And there's one I saw recently called I forget the name. But there's a film fund for £2,000, and they fund your film. You have to send in a script, treatment, and a 6-second video about who you are as a filmmaker. I was like, give it a go. The hardest bit, not writing the film or the treatment, was actually talking to myself on camera. I just done about 20 takes just doing that. Just saying my name and who I am. but yeah, so if you don't shoot, you don't score, and just give it a go.
Fair enough. And for the audience, you must have enjoyed, or have any questions, please feel free to ask. I mean, if you want to learn about something, how did they select the shoot, like, I mean, any technical questions, any inspirational questions, I would like to open the floor for the audience. So, yeah.
Right, when you're writing a script for like something that's set in the past, how much do you like to like base something off of the language of like the time and then like make it understandable today? Like, do you want it to feel like authentic, but then also like resonate with people today? Like, how do you walk that line when writing a script?
Yeah, it's a bit of a trade-off because I want you to feel like you're there. That's the main thing. So I kind of set an idea I've got for something set 10,000 years ago. We don't know how people spoke then, so I can't use an actual language, but I can make it simple. Me love you, kind of knock that out. It's kind of just set it for the time. So another one, if it's a king, they're going to speak higher up. If it's a pauper, they're going to speak more simple language. But I try and base it off the character and location rather than actual language. But it's something I want to do. I'd love to be able to write it in Saxon or Old English or whatever, but it's just, I think it'd take too long as well. But yeah.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah.
Question: have you produced a horror before?